Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jon-Eric. I'm an American teacher from New York, but I'm hanging out today from Lisbon, Portugal, to bring you the next in our Talkaholic Texts series. This is Talkaholic Text number 13, second part of this week's series called Denmark's Work-Life Balance. We're talking all about welfare and Social Security. Some people think it's a bad idea. We're going to read a text today from a very famous newspaper that looks at some of these issues. 3 quick rules to help you in my class. Turn off, tune in, and open up. Turn off means turn off your microphone when you come to class, but turn it on when you're ready to speak. That way we can cut down on background noise. But more important, please close the verbling window in the background. Otherwise, we're going to get a big echo. Also, rule number 2 is tune into the new words. Use them actively and deliberately throughout the class. Whatever you learn, try to put it to use right away. And rule number 3 is open up. Open up to your classmates and speak, because this is a safe and respectful place to practice your English. So, with that, let's get started. And let me see who's here. Whoops, there we go. So we've got familiar faces. Well, Alpha Pilot's face is not familiar because we don't know what he looks like, but he's here too. Josef, Marta, Ida, and Aga. Okay, excellent. And I think we have some other people joining us as well in just a moment. First, I'd like us all to yesterday, we began to talk about these issues. We didn't actually read the text. We just began to talk about some of these issues and get some of your opinions. I'd like to start. Hello, Mr. Artuf. Hello, Artuf.
Hello.
Hi there.
Is this your first? I don't speak English, please. I don't understand.
Artuf, this is an advanced class. So
What you say, please?
This is an advanced class, Artuf. So this may be difficult if your level is not as high as everyone else. Just so you know, the text is going to be a little bit difficult, but you're welcome to stay. It's up to you. Okay, so everyone else, I'm going to post a link to the article that we're looking at if you haven't opened it already. This is Talkaholic Text Series number 13. There you go in the verbling window. And I'm going to post it here in the regular chat as well. So you can, in the, what's that word? Google chat. That's what I want to say. And yesterday we began to talk about a term that was used, remember very well, the idea of the welfare queen. And this was, we talked about what welfare is, why it has a negative connotation, and what the welfare queen is. And we began to debate one of the issues in yesterday's class, just get some ideas about it. So let me just bring us all up to date on that. Hang on just a second. I'm going to open a link. And I'll share my screen just so you can see where we were. Yesterday, we read through this debate. We started to Denmark's work-life balance, and we were talking. We're going to read an article about this to give us a little bit more vocabulary and more preparation. But yesterday we ended with this question: is there a magic compromise to be made between reforming the European welfare state and saving it? If so, what would it look like, and how could it inspire innovations in other countries? Well, that is a question I want to talk about, but I think that it might be important to get a little bit of background. So I think today's text will help us get some of that background. So I'm going to put the question there in the chat window for you to think about, and we'll come back to it at some point by the end of the class. And there you go in the regular VerbLink chat window. Sorry, the regular Google chat window as well. In order to understand that question, we first had to look at the idea of welfare and the welfare queen. So what did we learn yesterday about this? Anyone want to venture a guess if you weren't here or talked about what we learned yesterday? Marta, you were here yesterday.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were. So what do you think that, how would you describe that person in your own words? The stereotype in the media of the welfare queen.
Oh.
In your own words. You don't have to use English. You can use an example. You can use a situation if you're not sure how to describe it.
When I left class, I was a bit confused, so I'm not sure to give if I give the right definition.
Don't worry about right and wrong. Give us your idea, and then I'll help you if there's something missing. Okay?
Okay.
So what did we learn about so far? What did we start to figure out?
Okay, the welfare queen is a metaphor.
Right.
Related to those governments who adopt the welfare state ideal.
So far, so good. It sounds like you understood to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
anything else to add?
However, this kind of government.
We'll call them administrations.
Okay.
Because government is permanent, but an administration is elected. So administrations will come and go, but the government is always permanent.
Okay. Are seen in a negative way because they are thought to cause some problems in modern societies because of the global financial crisis.
Okay, so maybe they have a role to play in some sense about the larger global financial crisis, and I think you're right about that. That's definitely the idea, that in some way this group of people is responsible in some way. But by the way, this is a stereotype. We're not saying this is true, but this is the stereotype. Marta, I think you understood very well. Does anyone want to add anything to that from yesterday? No? Joseph? How clear is it for you what we were talking about? Turn on your microphone, Joseph. Okay. Joseph, when you get your microphone on, say hello. So Ida, would you add anything to that? Or was there anything else that we could say to clarify the idea? Do you recall who said that? Who created the stereotype according to the media? Do you remember?
Who?
Who? Remember the quote about the welfare queen? And I said it was someone famous.
Yes. The quote about the ghost of the welfare queen. No, or that of the it had a lot of names or addresses of security.
That's it. Lots of names and lots of addresses, faking her identity to get what, Ida? What's she trying to get?
It's just to escape from the society.
Yeah, but she's using, according to the stereotype, she's using fake names and fake social security cards. And what's she trying to get?
She was trying to cheat.
Yeah, she's trying to cheat. And what's she trying to get? I want you to use some of the keywords we learned yesterday.
Social benefits.
Social benefits, right. And those social benefits, back to what Marta was saying, those are connected even to this global financial crisis because it was poor people who couldn't afford loans who were considered the people responsible for not paying back their loans, and then the loans weren't paid, so the banks didn't have money, they overextended the credit. So there is a connection there. And some people would blame them. Other people blame the banks. Most people blame the banks, actually. But no one's gone to jail yet, at least no one that I know of. A quick...
Teacher, one question.
What's that?
One question. In theory, the welfare state that exists in the United States, in theory, it's supposed to be good, isn't it?
What's supposed to be good? Sorry?
The welfare state.
According to people in the United States? I'm a little lost. There's a big movement, and for years, for decades, against the welfare state in the United States. And so Obama was able to pass some of the very first, well, the welfare state was a big thing after the Depression. So that was in the 1930s and, and throughout the 40s, well, before the war. And then Obama was able to make the first steps towards having Social Security like in Europe. And they call this Obamacare.
Yes,
that's what it's called in the media.
I have got confused, sorry.
And by the way, just a quick word about the word stereotype. We've got someone asking about stereotype. So what is a stereotype? By the way, hello to Mohammed. I know you're joining us a little late, but thanks for coming to class. We're going to be reading an article, but right now we're just kind of summarizing some of the things we learned yesterday about the same topic, talking about Social Security and welfare, whether it's a good idea, a bad idea. So we'll be talking about that. And that's my cat in the background.
You hear me now?
Yosef, you're here. I got you.
Yeah, I'm here finally. I don't know, I was having some,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, I got a bunch of people talking now. So, what I want to say. Why don't we start? Let's start with, I put a few ideas that are floating around in the media. I put them on the top of the document. So, if everyone's got that document open, and if you don't have it open, I'll give you the link right now. There's the link in the Verblink chat, and there is the link in the regular Google chat. Okay? And Mohammed, I'm just going to mute you temporarily because I'm getting a lot of noise. But when you're ready to speak, you can turn your microphone back on. So, if you scroll down the page, on the second page, underneath quotes, it says 5 ideas in the media. I'd like to start by just getting your idea, your reaction to these common ideas floating around in different articles and in different news broadcasts. Okay? So maybe I could have everyone read one and react to it. And a quick hello to Selmi, who's just joining us right now. Hi, Selmi. Click on the link to open the article that we're going to read. So Ida, why don't you start? Can you read the first idea that we're going to discuss under 5 ideas in the media?
Poor women have more children because of the financial incentives of welfare benefits.
Right. So, in other words, these are all ideas that are floating around in the media, and we've heard them for years, related to this welfare queen idea. So, welfare, or giving public benefits to people, is bad, according to these ideas. And the first one is because of what you said, financial incentives. So, Ida, can you put that in plain English? What is the problem with these incentives according to this way of looking at it? What's the problem? What do they mean by financial incentives? Is that clear?
No.
Not exactly.
I really know what financial incentives are, but I don't know what is the meaning of giving financial incentives. Because if you have a child, if you have a boy, even if you receive some financial incentives,
right?
It's really expensive having a child. So
yeah, exactly.
Maybe I think it's because that child will will help you, will work in the future, so it can give money to you, to that family. I don't know.
I agree with you completely. So Ida, what you're doing is explaining the stereotype.
Okay.
That's it. You're right. The stereotype is that if you have children, you will get financial incentives, right? Like, for example, maternity leave. It's not an incentive, but it's being called an incentive. An incentive is something that motivates you to do something, right?
It's not related. It's not just related with money, no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And another idea. So you've explained it very well. So that's the whole point, is what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying. The idea is, how could that be an incentive? It's still very expensive to have children. So how could that be an incentive? But this is one of the ideas floating around the media. And so I wanted to present 5 of the most popular ideas and decide what we think about them as a group. Any other reactions to that one? If not, we're going to read through them all and we can talk about them in general. Aga from Poland, are you there? Aga?
Yes, I'm here.
I remembered you're from Poland. See? I remembered.
Yes, very good memory. Even I was in your class, you remember.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I don't know how I do it.
Well done.
That's because I ask everyone where they're from, and if I ask you where you're from, I won't forget you.
You take down notes.
I don't. I really don't.
No, I'm just kidding.
I wish I did, because then I'd remember more. I'd like you to read the second one for us, if you could. By the way, what's this note in the chat window? Women receive a monthly amount of money for each child they have, from Marla. That's the public benefit. That's the benefit we're talking about. But in number 1, the first idea floating around the media, they call that an incentive, like as if the government is telling you to have children. We're going to give you money if you have children. So, but you're right about what you're referring to. So for some people, it's an incentive. Some people will call it an incentive. Other people will call it a benefit. But it's still expensive to have children, right? According to Ida, and I think we can all agree with that. So Aga, what about number 2? Let's get your reaction to the second idea.
Mm-hmm. We don't subsidize middle-class families.
Right. So you have to read between the lines a little bit. First of all, subsidize means what? Let's be clear about that.
Give some financial
support, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Give some financial support. And so the idea here is that we do give financial support to the poor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this idea floating around the media is that we don't subsidize middle-class families. So what do you think the argument is that they're trying to make?
I'm not sure, but I think that because if I understand, middle class is like a family who is not poor and not very rich, right? Like in
That's
the
it.
between. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that we donate a lot of money to poor people, and those families who are in the middle, we think that they are in a good situation and they don't need any
position, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, and they don't need any financial support, so that's why it seems like we don't care about them.
Right, right. So the argument, if I can add a little bit to statement number 2, is that, well, if we don't subsidize the middle class, and the middle class is the majority of people, that's the majority, not rich and not poor. Well, if we don't subsidize them, why would we subsidize any other group? So that's one of the arguments. And what do we think about that argument? Agree or disagree? Go for it, Guillermo.
I disagree.
Talk to us, Guillermo. I think we lost Guillermo. Oh, we lost Guillermo. He's gone. He disagreed, but now we're not going to hear his opinion. Does anyone else agree or disagree? Now's your time to speak up. By the way, while you're thinking, Marla is asking that an incentive is a motivation to have children. Well, right now we're discussing some of the media stereotypes of people, and some of the arguments that float around in the media. We're talking about those. So according to that argument, yes, if you receive maternity leave, that's a social benefit. Someone's got to pay for that, like the taxpayers. So some people would say, oh, that's like a motivation to have children because you're going to get money. It doesn't mean that we agree with it, but that's one of the stereotypes that floats around out there. And yes, middle-class people do receive that benefit. You're right. In other words, these arguments don't necessarily hold up if we start to scrutinize them. But it's good that we recognize what they are. Okay, let's read through the other list, and then we're going to try to jump into the article because it's got some very good vocabulary. So, Yosef, can you read the third one and give us your reaction to it? If you got your mic working? Yosef?
Yeah, it's working. Okay, the public is fed up with spending money on the poor. Well, I don't think so that I agree with that. I agree with the first two points more than that. I mean, they mean by the public like the majority of the people are fed up with giving the poor people money.
So, do you think people are fed up and they don't want to give up? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Like, for example, if I'm in the middle class family or a rich family, I'd not be fed up with spending money to the poor people in case to help them.
Okay. And if we look at some actual figures, not probably, you're not in the minority. A lot of people feel that way. So something like 21%, I have some figures here, 21%, only 21% said funding welfare programs. Welfare, remember, is just one way to call Social Security. 21% said the funding should be cut. This was in the 90s. This is a figure. I'm looking at an old article. While 29 said it should be increased. So this is for one of the assistance to the poor programs in the 90s. And the 90s was a period where we were cutting everything. So, oops, I think Guillermo is trying to get back in.
What is the figures again?
Well, I'll give you a quote here. Hold on a second. This is about one particular bill, but it's just an example. It's not to say that everything is like this, but here's one in the chat window. Support for, quote, welfare, unquote, is lower than support for assistance to the poor. But when CSPA asked people about their support for, so these are programs, welfare programs in the States. When they were asked about these programs, described as the federal welfare program which provides financial assistance for unemployed, poor single mothers with children. So that's like the poorest of the poor, unemployed single mothers, right? So there's not even a family there. Only 21% of the people polled thought the funding should be cut. That means 79% were not in favor. So this is just one example, but it's just to say that it seems that most people don't feel that it's a good idea to cut funding for the ultra poor. So this is just one statistic. Hang on a second here. Well, I'm trying to help people in the chat window, but all I can tell you is that if you have a ticket, you should be able to click on Join Class and just be able to come in. If you can't do that, go to my profile, click Follow Teacher, and you can send me messages through Facebook or Google+, and then I can try to fix the problem later. I can't do it right now. Okay, what about number 4? Let's do 4 and 5 a little more quickly there. So can I have, maybe I could have Selmi. Is your mic working? Do you have your mic on, Selmi? Selmi, are you there? Uh-oh. You have to unmute your microphone. There you go.
Hello,
now
yes,
I can hear you.
It's working. I'm sorry, it's working, yes.
Hi, Selmi. Where are you from?
I'm from Tunisia, but now I'm living in Dubai.
You're in Dubai now.
Yes.
Okay, nice to have you with us, Selma. Selmi, I'm sorry.
Salmi. No problem.
Selma's my
But
grandmother. I don't know why I'm
my
calling you Selma.
my first name is Yahya. Yahya.
Oh, it's backwards. Say your name again,
Ne-
but say it slowly.
Yahya.
Yahya.
Yes.
Is that right? Yahya.
Yahya.
Okay. I hope I got that right.
You
So,
can say Yahya. Send Yahya Touré, for example.
I can't say Yahya, but I can say Yahya. Huh?
Yahya.
That's pretty good,
Very
huh?
nice.
Huh? Yeah. Could you read the fourth idea from the media on that page? Do you have the page open?
No.
Uh-oh. If you click on the link, you will open the text document. And I don't have, hold on a second, I will post it again, but I can't keep posting it because in the Verbling chat window, do you see that link, Selmi?
Oh, it's okay. Man.
If you don't have the Verbling chat window, you can go to the Google chat and I've posted it there as well. Okay? So that's where we're going to read in just a moment. So let's go back to Marta. Could you read the fourth one while he's figuring out the text? Marta?
Yes.
The fourth one, 5 ideas
yes.
in the media. Number 4.
We've spent over 5 trillion on welfare since the 60s, and it hasn't worked.
Okay. So there's 2 ideas. One, that we spent $5 trillion, and 2, that it hasn't worked. What's your take on that? Do you think we've spent that much money, and do you think it hasn't worked? What would your reaction be?
My reaction?
Yeah.
I would think that maybe there were some problems.
Okay.
On the functioning of the whole system.
When aren't there problems? There's always problems.
Yeah.
So do you think the problems are insurmountable problems? Do you know what that means?
Yes.
Do you think they're insurmountable problems?
No,
or
I think that probably these are problems that can be tackled.
Okay. They can be tackled and maybe even overcome. So if you've got insurmountable problems, you cannot overcome them. You can't solve them. Well, here's the actual figure. So 500 billion from 1964 to 1994. That's one figure that I have. That's a lot less than trillions. It's not 5 trillion. So that means $500 billion spent for 30 years. And I don't have the figures from then until now. But we can take a look. But obviously at the time that the article was written, not the one we're going to read, another one that I'm referring to, it was not, so in 1994 they're talking about 5 trillion. So it wasn't 5 trillion at that time. So that's one issue. And the other issue is about problems. Well, there's definitely problems whenever you have a bureaucracy. That's true. Okay, and let's take a look at the last one now. So, Yahya. Oh, that was not a good H. Yahya. Do you have the article open now?
Yes.
Okay. Could you read the 5th one for us under 5 ideas in the media?
Sorry?
Could you read the 5th idea under 5 ideas in the media? When you have the article open, right, you should see, if you scroll down, you'll see this on your screen. So do you have that article open?
Sorry, I have a problem with my mic, so...
Okay. Well, when you click on that document, when you click on that link, this is the document you're going to open. It'll say Talkaholic Text Series number 13. And if you scroll down to the 2nd page, 5 ideas in the media, and we're on this one. So let's just listen to this and give me your reaction. Anyone who wants to get off welfare can just get a job. In other words, if you don't want to be receiving social benefits, all you need to do is go out and get a job. What do you think about that idea? Does that seem fair and realistic? What do you think, Ida?
Well, at least this day, this is completely unfair because getting a job, it's very, very, very difficult. So
Absolutely, yeah. So when this was, well, these arguments I've taken from an article that was written in the 90s, and the reason I'm using these arguments was because it was exactly in this period, 1994, 1995, when all of the neoliberal agenda and policies started to be put into place. So that's why I'm using this in particular. Now we're starting to see what the result has been. And so you're absolutely right. There's austerity measures now and high unemployment. So we're starting to see maybe things didn't work out exactly the way they had been planned. Well, I'd like us to take a look at as much of the article as we can because there's very good vocabulary. And in the rest of the week, I'm going to have you debate in a similar way that we did last week. Not today, but we're going to work on the vocabulary today. Did anyone already read the article? Because I posted it yesterday. Did anyone read it already?
I have read just the two first paragraphs.
Okay. So if this is new, let's jump into it now. So Ida, since you've read the first two paragraphs, you can breeze through the first two paragraphs, right?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you start us off with the first one?
Do you want to read?
Please.
Okay. It began as a stunt intended to prove.
Stunt, by the way, stunt.
Stunt intended to prove that hardship and poverty still existed in this small, wealthy country, but it backfired badly.
Right. By the way, how would you describe a stunt?
I think that a stunt is like a ploy.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And a ploy to do what? What's the purpose of the stunt?
It has a bad purpose.
It could if you have a bad intention. But if we're talking about the media, what do you think the purpose is? If we're talking about the media, television, newspapers, internet.
To manipulate the society.
Well, we're talking more about the media than society. So yeah, it's definitely some kind of a trick. Does anyone else want to give? What do you think the purpose is if we're talking about the media? Anyone else want to chime in there? Marta, Aga, any other ideas? Joseph?
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, a stunt can be a ploy or can be a trick. But if we're talking about the media, what do you think a stunt means in this context? We're talking about we began as a stunt to prove that hardship and poverty still existed in this small wealthy country, and it takes place in Copenhagen, so the country is Denmark. So I just wanted to clarify the word stunt. So what is a stunt in this context, especially in the context of a ploy intended for the media? Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear, but I don't know. Maybe it is selling something which is not totally true.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say again? It's a little hard to hear you, Joseph.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, speak loud and slow. Maybe it's what?
Okay, giving or telling something which is not totally true, like something like a propaganda or something.
Well, these are related ideas, yeah. In fact, the stunt here was to maybe cut through some of the propaganda, right? So I would say this is not a political, but a media stunt, a social stunt. In other words, we're doing some kind of a ploy, like Ida said, but with the purpose of raising awareness about an issue. Try to get the attention of the media. Try to get the attention, because those stunts can be physical stunts, like in the movies. You have a stunt person performing dangerous acts. Here, it's a publicity stunt. A publicity stunt, trying to get the attention of the media. Ida, keep going.
Okay. So to prove that hardship and poverty still exist in this small wealthy country, but it backfired badly. Visit a single mother of two on welfare, a liberal member of parliament goaded, a skeptical
Goaded, by the way. Goaded.
A skeptical political opponent. See for yourself how hard it is.
Yeah, that should be a quote, by the way. Sorry. Goaded is when you're speaking to someone, but you're speaking in a way that's not very nice. So you're kind of pushing them. And so this should actually be a quote. So it's more clear if I put it in quotes. Visit a single mother of two on welfare, a liberal member of parliament goaded. That's like, talking down to someone. What's the word I want to say? Oh, someone's by a window. I hear a car. Kind of like reprimanding, or verbally sort of punishing someone. Okay, so visit a single mother of two on welfare and see how it is for yourself. So that was the stunt. Someone decided to do it for real, right? Mm-hmm. Someone said, oh, let's walk a mile in my shoes. So someone decided to do it for real. Okay, keep going. It turned out how, Ida?
It turned out, however, that life on welfare was not so hard. The 36-year-old single mother, given the pseudonym Karina in the news media, had more money to spend than many of the country's full-time workers. All told, she was getting about $2,700 a month, and she had been on welfare since she was 16.
Right. By the way, when you see 4 digits, we usually say we break it into twos.
27.
Yeah. 27 what? 27, not 1,000. 27.
Oh, zero.
Because we break it here, so it would be 27 with 2 zeros. Would not be 1,000. It's 100.
Okay.
So it's written 2,700, but it's pronounced 2,700.
Okay.
So, what was unusual about this person on welfare? What was unusual about her, according to this report?
Well, in theory, that woman or was living in bad condition. She was poor, but that's all in theory, because in the reality he had a lot of money, and he lived even better than middle class people.
Right. So she's supposed to be in the lower class, but she's living, in fact, better than middle class. And where's she getting the money from? Did she win the lottery?
No.
No. Where did she get the money from?
I suppose he was taking advantage of the taxes that almost all people pay.
No, not at all.
No.
No, she was receiving unemployment benefits. She was receiving subsidies for being a single mother. So first she was a single mother, and second she was unemployed. We can guess some of this, but she was receiving benefits.
Yeah,
because,
but that
right?
benefits come from taxes that people pay.
Yes, that's true. Yes. They come from tax money. That's it. Okay. So, this is your stereotypical welfare queen, right? Only it's not in the United States. This is happening in Denmark, in theory, This is what they're reporting. I don't know how true it is, but this is what they're reporting. And we're talking about Denmark because Scandinavia is like the model for the socialist model. It's the model countries for the socialist system because they eliminated poverty. It didn't exist. So this article from the New York Times is trying to give you another perspective. Whether or not we agree. I'm a little suspicious, to be honest with you. Aga, want to continue the second paragraph?
Yes, and sorry, could I have just one question?
You can have many questions.
Okay. In which situation would you use that expression, all told?
All told. Yeah, so all told she was getting back. All together. It's a synonym for like all together, together, or totally, or in total, or in some. It's so I guess you just say, but we have a lot of expressions for this. In British English, you always hear, well, at the end of the day, meaning the final result of something. So all told is kind of similar to that. Or it could be more financial and say, in total, in sum. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, so continue for us, please, Aga.
Okay. In past years, Danes might have shrugged off the case.
Shrugged off.
Shrugged off the case, finding Karina more pitiable than anything else.
Pitiable. Pitiable. In other words, they could pity her, feel sorry for her.
Okay. But even before her story was in the headlines 16 months ago, they were deeply engaged in a debate about whether their beloved welfare state, perhaps Europe's most generous, had become too rich and undermining the country's undermining the country's work ethic. Karina helped tip the scales. With little fuss or political protest or notice abroad, Denmark has been at work overhauling entitlements, trying to prod Danes into working more or longer.
Trying to prod Danes. Prod is when you stick a stick into someone's ribs. You prod them, like poke.
Okay. Trying to prod Danes into working more or longer, or both. While much of Southern Europe has been racked by strikes and protests as its creditors force austerity measures, Denmark still has a
coveted. Coveted means everyone is jealous of that thing. We're all looking at it and we're envious. We're jealous.
Okay. AA bond rating, but Denmark's
AAA bond. When you see three A's together, we say triple A.
Okay, AAA bond rating. But Denmark's long-term outlook is troubling. The population is aging, and in many regions of the country, people without jobs now outnumber those with them.
So unemployment has increased. There's a lot to understand in this paragraph. So any questions about any of the vocabulary or any of the concepts? I'd rather have you ask than me tell you. So, Aga, can you give us just the gist of this paragraph? Can you boil it down to a main idea? What do you think? And then I'll help you if you miss anything or if you have any questions.
Just give me a few seconds.
But don't worry about perfection. Just get the idea out.
What is the meaning, teacher, of in the first sentence?
Teacher? Where do you see a teacher
Jon-Eric.
here? Oh, right. Danes might have shrugged off the case. In other words, if you shrug, you do this with your shoulders. Like,
yeah, I know.
I don't care. So it's a metaphor for saying Danish people probably would have just ignored this media stunt. They would have ignored it, right? They would have. But they didn't because something happened.
Yeah.
And if we could fit what happened that made them take notice of the story? That's the question. What happened to make them notice the story? What was going on at the exact same time that made this story particularly important and relevant?
A lot of strikes and the demonstrations, people, a lot of demonstrations.
Okay, so first of all, there's demonstrations all over Europe, especially in the South. That's true. Yeah. So there was a global financial crisis going on. So that's one thing. And how did that affect Denmark and these Scandinavian countries that eliminated poverty? How did it affect them? I mean, who's paying for the welfare state? Who's paying for it? Let's go back to that. Who pays for welfare?
Poor people.
No, who pays for it, not who receives it. Who's paying for it?
All the workers.
Yeah, the workers, people working. Anyone who pays taxes.
Yeah.
So, Europe was having financial problems. Suddenly there's this story about a quote-unquote welfare queen. Suddenly people noticed because the problem, everyone's worried about what's going to happen. And there's that line here in the middle, which is okay, so even before her story was in the headlines in the newspapers, the Danish people were deeply engaged in a debate. They were debating about what? They're debating about whether or not to continue with the welfare state, whether socialism was working. Perhaps Europe's most generous country, right, had become too rich, undermining the work. In other words, this is really important here. Perhaps Europe's most generous country had become too rich, undermining the work ethic. So, is that clear? What's the work ethic here? By the way, I'm going to explain the word prod in just a second, because I think there's a question about it. What's the work ethic here? Anyone want to venture a guess? Or you could try to say, what is the opposite of a work ethic? If you have no work ethic, do you work? What could we use instead of the word ethic? Maybe that. What's a simpler word?
Rules.
Rules?
Loyalty.
Loyalties? What do you mean by loyalties?
No. Loyal in a loyal way. I don't know what is the adjective. I know the noun. If you are
loyal.
Loyal. Yeah.
Is the adjective. Loyalties is the noun. Okay.
So, loyalties.
So if you take that sentence, loyalty to whom? Work loyalty? In other words, if we could replace ethic with a simple word, what could we replace it with? That's one way to try to figure out difficult words or difficult sentences. Just substitute the difficult words and see if it makes sense. Europe's most generous country, I'm adding the word country, had become too rich, and this undermined it. I'm adding back the word this. It's not there, but I'm going to put it there. This undermined the country's work ethic. So the work ethic is whether you feel like working. It's whether you as a society want to work or don't want to work. That's your work ethic. Or it could describe the way you work. Is that more or less clear? So this is really an important point. We have to make sure this is clear before we go on. Guillermo, how would you boil that idea down into a simple statement? This idea that some people think that Denmark became so rich that it undermined the country's work ethic. Did people want to work in Denmark anymore? According to the author.
The problem is that I don't understand very well the idea that is under this work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So it's really, let's clarify that. It's really whether or not individuals or society wants to work, whether you feel like working. Your work ethic could be whether you want to work, and your work ethic could be how you work. So there's a stereotype in the South that people don't work hard, right? There's a stereotype in the North that if you don't work, you're not worth anything. For example, these are stereotypes. It's not that they're true, but these are stereotypes. So those are two different work ethics. Like, for example, here in Portugal, not nowadays, but a long time ago, it used to be common to have a nap in the afternoon, which was actually a very healthy thing. If you're here in the summer, it's very hot. In Spain, this is called the siesta. Here, it's called the siesta.
The siesta.
Right, and it's also in Italy. When I was there, it was normal there as well. Well, it's impossible to do now because the way the work laws are set up, it's just not possible. But okay, but it's still kind of there. Well, if you according to the stereotype, it means you don't feel like working. You're lazy. You want to go take a siesta, right? So your work ethic is that you work when you feel like it. That's your work ethic. So it's really your feeling about work. Is that clear, Guillermo?
Yeah.
More or less.
All right. So,
More or less.
So, does anyone want to venture a guess then? What is this idea that developed? That Europe's most generous country, or most generous countries, had become too rich. And therefore, what was the result, according to this stereotype? They had become too rich, and therefore, did people want to work?
No.
No. Exactly. And then right at that moment, suddenly appears this media stunt of this girl who apparently has been on welfare since she was 16 years old, and she's got a kid. The kid's also on welfare because they're supporting her, and she's earning better than most people who actually have jobs. So that's why this became a pretty big media event. Is that pretty much clear? Because it's important to understand this before we go on.
Yeah, now it's clear.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna run out of time. I think what the best thing to do is we're gonna run out of time here. All right. I think we have time to maybe hit one more paragraph, and we're gonna have to stop. But what I want you to do is, I'd like you to keep reading this on your own. I'm going to attach a little quiz too to help you with some of the vocabulary, like I did in the last time. And we can talk about the answers in the beginning of the next class. Guillermo, do you want to read the next and last paragraph for today?
Okay.
Go for it.
Some of that is a result of a depressed economy, but many experts say a more basic problem is the proportion of Danes who are not participating in the workforce at all.
Right. And workforce means the people who are employed. They are the workforce.
Okay. Be they dawdling university students, young pensioners, or welfare recipients like Karina, who lean on hefty government support. Before the crisis, there was a sense that there was always going to be more and more. Björk Moller, the editor-in-chief of publications for Mandag Morgen, a research group in Copenhagen.
Keep going.
But that is not true anymore. There are a lot of pressures on us right now. We need to be an agile society to survive.
Okay, that's it. By the way, dawdling university students, according to the stereotype, are university students good workers?
No.
What's their work ethic like according to the stereotype?
that they stay a lot of time studying.
They stay a lot of they don't stay a lot of time. They spend a lot of time
They
studying.
spend a lot of time in the university or studying.
That's true. And what else do they do a lot in university?
Parties.
Yeah. So the idea of dawdling is that you've got these partying people that stay up late, they come to class late, or they don't go at all. Maybe they study, but they're probably going to do everything at the last minute. So dawdling means like not doing it on time. If you dawdle, you come late. So your work ethic is a lazy work ethic. Just so that dawdling is clear. Any questions about paragraph 3? If not, maybe we can do one last one before we end class. Who has not read, by the way? Who? Marta, go for it. Paragraph 4.
4. The Danish model of government is close to religion here, and it has produced a population that regularly claims to be among the happiest in the world. Even the country's conservative politicians are not suggesting getting rid of it.
What is it here? Getting rid of what?
Of the model.
The model, which is...
of the welfare state.
Right, okay, good.
Okay. Denmark has among the highest marginal income tax rates in the world, with a top bracket of 56.5%, kicking in on incomes of more than about $80,000. But in exchange, Danes get a cradle-to-grave safety net that includes free health care, a free university education, and hefty payouts to even the richest citizens.
Okay, so you can imagine what cradle to the grave means, from the time you're born until the time you die.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, so Marta, is this situation similar to where you live?
Not at all.
Oh no, what's the difference?
People are not encouraged to procreate, to have children. Because there are no maternity benefits.
Where are you again?
In Italy.
There are no maternity benefits in Italy? Really?
Well, there are ways to escape the problem.
But you don't have maternity leave and stuff like that?
Yes, if you are a regular employee, yes. But
so if you're a freelancer, you don't get it.
No, but many employers hire people not on a regular basis, just on casual. So they have the way to get rid of the problem of maternity leaves.
Okay. And do you think the welfare state, or social security, as we might call it, is in danger in Italy?
It might be, yes.
Okay. And so I want to ask Aga too, because you're from a country that I know nothing about. Is this comparable to Poland? Aga, are you there? Did we lose Aga? I think we lost Aga. Is anyone there? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, teacher. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we can't hear Aga, so maybe she's disappeared. Okay, listen, everyone. I'd like you to try to keep reading this article on your own, and later tonight, I don't know when, but at some point, I'm going to post a little vocabulary quiz, like I did in the last article, and we can go over the answers in the beginning of the next class, and I'll post a link to the answers as well. And we're going to get into a debate about the oops, hold on a second here. I got Spanish in the background, sorry. And we're going to get into a debate about what we think should be done when we get to the bottom of the article. So we're going to stop here for now. You can send your questions and comments to me on Google Plus or Facebook. If you're just watching, you can also follow me by clicking on Follow Teacher on my profile. Don't lose the link to the article. And if there's any questions, you can ask me these things directly. And we're going to have to stop there for today. So what else do I want to say? in the next class, just a quick preview, we're going to debate this article, but I'd also like to return to the activity we did in the last week, where we're debating from some arguments that are out there in the public. So we were paraphrasing some interesting arguments from intellectuals. So we have, we're going to take this all from the New York Times. And we can start our debate just by arguing from the point of view of some of the issues that are out there. And then we can turn it over to what we think and see what the group consensus is. So that's the plan. Okay, any questions before we go for today?
No.
No? Okay. So we're going to stop there. I hope to see you tomorrow at the same time, and we're going to commence with the debate. So that's it for now, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Remember, you can ask me questions on Google or Facebook. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
Goodbye, John.
Bye-bye.